The morning had started like any other. Streets were full of people rushing to work, children walking to school, and markets buzzing with life. Yet by midday, the world changed in a way no one could have imagined. A strange calm settled in the sky first. The sun, bright and golden just an hour before, was now hidden behind a shadow. People looked up and gasped. It wasn't a cloud or smog or any weather phenomenon they had ever seen. It was something far larger. High above the planet, massive shapes moved with deliberate speed. The shapes were not airplanes, satellites, or anything built by humans. They were enormous, dark, and impossible to ignore. Entire cities stopped what they were doing. People raised their phones to record, to live stream, but the cameras seemed to falter as if the devices themselves did not want to capture what was happening. News channels went into emergency broadcast mode. The world's leaders appeared on every screen, their faces tense, their eyes wide, their voices steady but heavy with worry. The fleet above us, one leader said. They are not here to negotiate. We do not know their intentions, but they are giving us a deadline. They want Earth to surrender. In homes across continents, people whispered in disbelief. Surrender to who? What did that even mean? Questions raced through every mind. Governments sent warnings to their citizens. Commercial flights were grounded. Military aircraft scrambled, but every radar system seemed confused. The ships in the sky did not behave like anything known to human science. They hovered, moved silently, and sometimes vanished from sensors only to appear somewhere else a second later. Scientists were called to the media. Astronomers, physicists, and space engineers tried to explain, but even their knowledge fell short. The ships were enormous, so massive that some experts estimated each could carry millions of tons of material. Their surfaces shimmered with strange energy fields, unlike any technology ever studied on Earth. Satellites orbiting the planet went dark one by one, leaving communication gaps. People could only rely on shortwave radios, some emergency networks, and a few encrypted channels still functioning. In the streets, panic began to rise. People hoarded supplies, leaving stores empty in a matter of hours. Governments urged calm, but fear was contagious. Parents held their children close. Strangers shared nervous glances on buses and trains. In some places, chaos erupted as rumors spread. Stories of ships firing invisible beams, of cities destroyed before anyone could even see the attack. Most of it was unconfirmed, yet the fear felt real enough to spark hysteria. Amid the growing tension, the political leaders of Earth gathered in emergency meetings. For days, or what felt like days in a time when every second mattered, they debated surrender. Some argued it was the only way to save human lives. Others believed resistance could work, that Earth's combined armies could fight back with strategy and courage. Every option seemed impossible, every plan fragile. The invaders' power was overwhelming. Entire fleets had appeared out of nowhere. Any direct confrontation would mean mass destruction. Yet unknown to almost everyone, not all of Earth's defenses were visible. Beneath the chaos, in places the world had long forgotten, preparations were already in motion. In deserts, mountains, and beneath frozen ice, hidden facilities activated. People trained in secrecy moved swiftly, following plans written decades ago. These were not the ordinary military forces seen on TV. They were engineers, pilots, scientists, and soldiers who had worked quietly for years, waiting for a moment like this. They had prepared for the unimaginable. In one facility, buried deep under ice, enormous hangars housed ships that were unlike anything the public had ever known. They were black, angular, and silent. Their engines were quiet, almost ghostly. On the walls, control panels glowed with symbols that no one outside the facility could read. Men and women in uniforms moved with precision, checking systems, coordinating operations, and running simulations. Their movements were calm, almost mechanical, but beneath the calm was determination. They knew the world above them was on the brink, and they understood their role was vital. Back on the surface, people began to notice unusual patterns in the sky. Some reported seeing flashes of light, almost like distant lightning but without sound. Others described shapes moving against the clouds so fast that they seemed impossible. No government announcements addressed these sightings, and no news channels dared to speculate too much. The public had enough fear without imagining secret weapons hidden beneath the ice or deserts. Yet for those paying attention, hope flickered quietly in these strange signs. The invaders, for their part, were confident. They had studied Earth from afar for years, predicting humanity's reactions. They expected fear, confusion, and eventual surrender. They underestimated one thing: humans are not always predictable. While the world panicked, some individuals scattered across continents refused to bow. Engineers and labs continued their work. Pilots ran simulations, refining maneuvers that could only be executed under extreme conditions. Scientists analyzed the alien signals, trying to understand the enemy's technology, searching for weaknesses hidden in plain sight. Children asked questions their parents could not answer. People prayed not always for protection, but for clarity. Communities gathered in safe zones, sharing food, information, and strength. In hospitals, doctors worked tirelessly, treating those injured in panic-related accidents. Across nations, ordinary citizens showed extraordinary courage. Humanity, it seemed, was discovering its resilience in real time. Meanwhile, the invaders communicated in calm, cold broadcasts. Their voices were uniform, almost mechanical, speaking in languages that humans could barely interpret. The message was always the same: surrender or face obliteration. But as the days passed, cracks appeared in their assumptions. They did not understand that beneath the surface, humanity was already moving in ways they could not track. The countdown to surrender, as far as the aliens were concerned, was almost over. Yet the world above would never see the end of this story in the way they expected. By the fourth day, more people began to notice unusual activity. Military satellites that were thought lost suddenly pinged with new data. Ships in harbors moved with unusual patterns. Airfields once dormant were alive with hidden operations. It was clear that someone, somewhere, was preparing for a confrontation that could change everything. Fear still ruled the streets, but it mingled with curiosity and awe. Whispers spread. Maybe humans were not as powerless as they seemed. As the seventh day approached, tension reached its peak. Governments debated final strategies while ordinary citizens prepared for the worst. News channels reported mass evacuations in some regions, yet in the shadow of fear, a quiet strength was emerging. People were no longer only running from danger. They were learning to anticipate it, to organize, and to survive. And somewhere, far below the frozen lands, the engines of hidden ships hummed. Panels lit up with soft green glows. People who had been waiting for this moment for years moved with urgency, not panic. They knew that what the invaders expected, fear, surrender, helplessness, would never happen. Humanity was preparing to show that, even in the darkest hour, it had courage, ingenuity, and the will to fight back. The sky remained dark and still. The world above did not yet know what was coming. Panic and hope coexisted, creating a tension so thick it could almost be felt in the air. On the surface, millions waited for instructions, for guidance, for any sign that the nightmare would end peacefully. Below, a few knew the truth. Earth would not surrender. Not yet. Not ever. And so the first act of this new, unimaginable story ended not with explosions or destruction, but with anticipation. The world had held its breath for 4 days. Humanity was scared, uncertain and fragile, but in hidden places it was alive, ready, and moving toward a moment that no one above could predict. The calm before the storm was almost over, and in those shadows, a plan that would shake the very invaders themselves was quietly taking shape. While the world above was filled with fear and uncertainty, far beneath the frozen surface of Antarctica, a place long forgotten by most of humanity stirred to life. This was not a normal research base. It had been built decades ago, during a time when rumors of extraterrestrial encounters circulated quietly among governments. Many dismissed the stories, calling them myths or conspiracy theories, but here, in the deep ice, those whispers had become reality. The facility, hidden under miles of ice and snow, was enormous. Its corridors stretched for kilometers, its walls lined with advanced machinery that seemed decades ahead of the world above. The people who worked here moved with purpose. They were engineers, pilots, and scientists, but not the kind that people saw on television. These individuals had been trained in secrecy, preparing for a scenario most of humanity could not even imagine. Their eyes, steady and focused, reflected the faint glow of countless screens that tracked energy readings, structural integrity, and communications. Every system had a purpose, every movement had a reason, and every day of training had led to this exact moment. At the center of the facility lay the hangars. Massive doors made of reinforced alloys slid open to reveal ships unlike any known to the world above. They were black, angular, and sleek, built not for show but for stealth and speed. Each vessel was a masterpiece of engineering, powered by energy systems that the invaders themselves had used in their own designs. It was as if humans had taken the knowledge of their enemies and turned it against them. Every ship had been tested, every control calibrated, and every crew had trained relentlessly. The Shadow Armada, as the few who knew called it, had been waiting. The first order of the day was always checks. Engineers moved along catwalks, scanning control panels, adjusting systems, and coordinating with pilots in training. These pilots were not only experts in conventional flight, they were trained to think in ways most humans could not imagine. The ships were capable of maneuvers that defied normal physics, and the pilots had to be ready to push their bodies and minds to the limit. Simulators filled entire rooms, each one recreating alien technology and tactics, forcing the pilots to anticipate movements, counterattacks, and adapt in seconds. In one section of the base, a team worked on communications. Signals intercepted from the alien fleet were analyzed, decrypted, and sometimes mimicked. Every piece of alien technology brought to Earth over the years had been studied here, broken down, and used to improve the Shadow Armada. The scientists understood patterns in the enemy's communications, predicting movements based on subtle frequencies and energy spikes. They had discovered weaknesses that the invaders assumed did not exist. Every day, every hour of preparation had led to this moment, though the world above remained unaware. Despite the cold and isolation, there was a sense of purpose in the facility that few in the outside world could understand. Everyone knew the stakes. The aliens believed humanity was scared, weak, and ready to surrender. They did not know that hidden beneath the ice, Earth had a secret advantage, a force waiting to rise when the time was right. In quiet meetings, leaders of the facility spoke in low voices, making final adjustments to strategies, running last-minute simulations, and ensuring that no error could compromise the mission. Outside, the Antarctic ice remained silent and imposing. Storms could rage above, and temperatures could drop to levels most humans could not survive. But inside, the base was a hive of activity. Robots and automated systems assisted in tasks, moving heavy equipment, repairing minor faults, and monitoring energy levels. Every detail mattered. A single failure could mean disaster, but every system had backups, redundancies, and human oversight. The people here were not just preparing to defend, they were preparing to change the course of history. The pilots suited up. Their uniforms were designed to handle extreme environments, with reinforced layers for protection, but also to interface with the ship's control systems. They moved calmly, speaking in concise terms, checking equipment, reviewing tactical plans, and running through sequences again and again. Their minds were sharp, focused on the task at hand, because they understood that hesitation could cost lives, not just their own, but millions around the world. In the control rooms, scientists monitored simulations that were far more than theoretical exercises. Every move in the simulation was designed to prepare them for reality. Enemy ship speeds, firing patterns, and energy signatures were replicated as accurately as possible. Each scenario tested the crew's reactions under pressure. The stakes were clear. Failure was not an option because once the Shadow Armada emerged, it would be humanity's only chance. Time passed differently here. Days and nights, as humans knew them, were meaningless beneath miles of ice. The only measure of time was the readiness of the ships and crews. Updates from the surface were constant but incomplete. News of panic, evacuations, and military movements filtered in, but they were secondary to the preparation in the depths. Everyone understood the bigger picture. The aliens above believed Earth was weak, but the real power had never been visible from the sky. There were moments of quiet reflection too. Some engineers paused in their workstations, staring at the glowing panels, thinking of families, friends, and the world they were about to protect. Others walked the corridors, checking systems by hand, listening to the hum of the facility, feeling the weight of responsibility. They were aware of the sacrifices that might be required, yet they carried on without fear. Courage, they understood, was not the absence of fear, but the determination to act despite it. On the surface, people began to notice unusual phenomena. Satellites that had gone dark suddenly sent weak pings. Strange lights were reported in remote regions. Pilots flying standard missions reported fleeting shadows moving impossibly fast, disappearing before confirmation could be made. The world above could not see it yet, but small signs hinted at something preparing to rise. Hope, quiet and fragile, began to spread in whispers. Deep within the base, leaders made final adjustments to the Shadow Armada's deployment strategy. Every ship, every pilot, and every support system was accounted for. Energy sources were checked, flight paths confirmed, and contingencies considered. Nothing was left to chance. The people here understood one truth above all. When the time came, humanity could not rely on fear or negotiation. It could only rely on preparation, strategy, and unity. The crews ran through their sequences one last time. Engines powered up briefly for checks, and the hum of the ships echoed through the hangars. Pilots strapped in, ready for simulations that mirrored what they would soon face above. Communication specialists ensured that no signal would be lost, that every message could be sent and received even under interference. Scientists ran calculations for energy fields, weapon systems, and defensive protocols. Every system was synchronized, every person coordinated. Outside, the Antarctic storm howled, snow and wind battering the surface. Yet beneath it, the base remained a sanctuary of purpose and discipline. It was a reminder that humanity, even when small and hidden, could prepare for what seemed impossible. Here in the ice, humans had built something remarkable, a force designed to challenge the invaders above, to rise when the world expected surrender, and to strike when the moment was right. The days passed in preparation, and each day brought humans closer to the inevitable. The Shadow Armada was more than ships and technology. It was a symbol of human resilience. While the world above feared annihilation, the people below were focused on what they could control. They trained, checked, and recalculated, knowing that once they emerged, there would be no turning back. Finally, as the countdown to the aliens' deadline approached, a quiet energy filled the base. Pilots checked instruments one last time, engineers completed final calibrations, and scientists ran simulations to ensure nothing had been missed. Everyone knew the moment was coming, when the world above would witness something they had never imagined. The Shadow Armada was ready. No one outside yet knew the truth. Governments still debated surrender. Citizens still hoped for miracles. Panic and fear still ruled the streets. But far below the surface, in the frozen depths of Antarctica, humanity's secret waited patiently. The ships, the crews, and the strategy were all in place. The Shadow Armada was prepared to emerge, not as a show of fear or intimidation, but as a declaration that Earth would not surrender. And so, beneath the ice, in silence and secrecy, the hidden power of humanity waited. It waited for the moment when hope above would falter, when fear would spread, and when the world would need proof that humans, even in their darkest hour, could rise, strike back, and show that survival was not only possible but inevitable. The countdown had begun. On screens around the world, the aliens' messages repeated with eerie calm. Surrender or face annihilation. Their words were clear, precise, and cold, but the humans hearing them felt something else. Fear, uncertainty, and a deep, growing tension that spread like wildfire. Governments met in emergency sessions, leaders huddled behind closed doors, and advisors argued about what to do. Some insisted surrender was the only choice, that giving up might save lives. Others argued that giving in would be a mistake, that humanity could still fight back, though no one truly knew how. In homes, apartments, and small villages, people whispered to each other in fear. Children clung to parents, and parents clutched what little supplies they could gather. Markets emptied in hours. People bought food, water, and fuel as if every hour could be the last. Schools closed. Flights were canceled. Roads were clogged with vehicles as people tried to flee cities, though they did not know where they could go. Panic was everywhere, and yet amid the fear, quiet determination began to form in certain hearts. High above the planet, the alien fleet moved like a shadow across the sky. Some ships descended slowly, their energy pulses bright and unnatural. Others hovered silently, scanning, analyzing, and waiting. Every radar system humanity had failed to give accurate readings. The ships appeared and disappeared as if they were aware of every human attempt to track them. The world's militaries scrambled jets and ships, but no weapon could reach them. Conventional strategies, tactics, and even global coordination seemed useless against such power. Meanwhile, beneath the surface, the hidden forces of Earth were already in motion. In Antarctica, the Shadow Armada's hangars were alive with activity. Pilots, engineers, and scientists moved quickly, quietly, and with purpose. Every ship had been checked, every system calibrated. Communications were tested repeatedly. Energy systems hummed steadily, and backup protocols ensured no single failure could compromise the operation. This was no longer preparation, it was readiness for action. Leaders in the base studied the transmissions from the aliens carefully. They analyzed patterns, frequencies, and timing. They had learned that the invaders expected humans to panic, to make desperate mistakes, and eventually to surrender. That expectation was their weakness. Humans were unpredictable, capable of clever improvisation, and that unpredictability could be used against them. The base leaders coordinated with teams across the world, sending encrypted signals to remote facilities, ensuring that the emerging plan would synchronize perfectly when the time came. On the surface, ordinary people were still reacting to fear. News broadcasts showed deserted streets, military vehicles moving cautiously, and emergency services stretched thin. Yet small acts of courage emerged everywhere. Strangers helped each other carry supplies. Communities shared information about safe zones. Volunteers worked tirelessly in hospitals treating injuries from accidents, stress, and panic. Children asked questions that had no answers, yet parents did their best to explain. In the midst of chaos, humanity's resilience quietly showed itself. The countdown continued, ticking away in hours. The aliens repeated their demand for surrender with mechanical precision. Messages were sent in multiple languages, in every major broadcast channel in every city, to ensure no one could claim ignorance. Their voices were emotionless, but the threat behind them was unmistakable. Humanity's leaders faced a grim reality. If they failed to act, billions of lives could be lost. Some argued for negotiation, sending envoys into orbit or attempting signals that might reach alien commanders. Others argued that negotiation was pointless, that the only chance for survival was to strike strategically and decisively. Back in the hidden bases, pilots ran simulations that mirrored the alien fleet's expected attacks. They tested every maneuver, every tactic, every possible scenario. Engineers monitored the ship's systems, running calculations to ensure they could handle extreme stress, high-speed movement, and energy discharge beyond anything humans had seen. Scientists ran simulations of the alien technology, searching for vulnerabilities. Every person knew the importance of their role. A single mistake could doom the mission, but every successful calculation, every precise maneuver could save lives. As the sixth day approached, subtle changes began to appear in the sky. Satellites that had gone dark were intermittently active, sending partial signals. Strange lights appeared above remote regions, fleeting and mysterious. Military observers reported anomalies, objects moving faster than anything human technology could produce, vanishing and reappearing in seconds. Though these signs were minor and difficult to confirm, they were real, and they hinted at something below the surface. Someone, somewhere, was preparing to change the course of the conflict. People above ground had no idea what was happening below. They saw only fear, tension, and uncertainty. They did not know that humans had been preparing for this moment for decades, quietly in hidden facilities, in secret programs, and in ways that no one above could imagine. The Shadow Armada represented humanity's patience, discipline, and intelligence. While the world panicked, they were ready, and their readiness was what would decide the fate of the planet. Communication channels were critical. Encrypted signals moved between bases across continents. Engineers ensured that energy systems could remain stable even under extreme interference. Pilots ran drills to respond to unexpected maneuvers, preparing for an enemy that could vanish and reappear at will. Every system was synchronized. The humans below understood one simple truth. The aliens assumed fear and surrender, but the real power was hidden, waiting, and patient ordinary humans, unaware of these preparations, continued their attempts to survive. Streets were quiet in some cities, noisy in others. Shops remained empty. Lines at gas stations grew longer. Some people tried to flee to rural areas. Others waited in their homes, hoping the threat would pass. Panic and hope existed side by side, creating a tension that could be felt in the air. People argued, cried, prayed, and held their loved ones closer. Every action, small or large, reflected humanity's instinct to survive. Leaders on the surface debated last-minute strategies. Should they surrender? Should they attempt communication? Could they even hope to defend their cities and populations? Every option seemed flawed. Every decision carried weight beyond comprehension. Yet beneath the fear, A small group of people knew something the rest of the world did not. Humanity had already made a choice. Earth would not surrender, not because of pride or stubbornness, but because preparations had already begun, hidden from the invaders' eyes. On the 6th day, tension reached a breaking point. The alien fleet appeared lower in the sky, scanning, analyzing, preparing for the moment when they would claim victory. They expected to see fear, to witness collapse. They expected humanity to surrender in desperation. Instead, subtle signals began to appear. Flashes of energy, brief movements in the sky, and minor anomalies that confused their sensors. For the first time, they sensed that humans were not entirely helpless. In the hidden bases, the Shadow Armada crews monitored every development. Pilots ran final drills. Engineers completed last-minute checks, and scientists confirmed that all systems were functioning perfectly. The countdown from the aliens above was almost complete, but below, humans were calm, focused, and ready. They had prepared for this moment their entire lives, training, calculating, and waiting for the opportunity to act. As night fell in parts of the world, cities became eerily quiet. Emergency lights flickered, power grids struggled under strain, and civilians remained confined to their homes or shelters. Fear was pervasive, but beneath it, hope flickered quietly. Whispers spread among communities. Strange lights had been seen, unusual reports were emerging, and some believed that humans were preparing something secret, something powerful. Though the truth was hidden, the idea of resistance sparked courage in small ways. Beneath the ice, the crews of the Shadow Armada finished their preparations. Ships' engines were ready, energy systems stable, weapons primed. Every pilot and engineer knew their roles by heart. Coordinated signals were sent across bases worldwide. The system was ready to synchronize globally, striking at the precise moment when the aliens expected humanity to surrender. Every action had been rehearsed, every sequence planned, and every contingency accounted for. The alien countdown continued. The world above believed that surrender was imminent. Panic remained widespread. Governments debated last-minute choices. Civilians clung to hope, prayer, and survival instincts. But humanity had already decided. The time for fear was over. The time for action was near. The Shadow Armada, hidden from the world for decades, was prepared to rise, to change the tide, and to show the invaders that Earth was not theirs to claim so easily. And so, as the 6th day ended, tension and anticipation filled every corner of the world. Humans above and below felt the weight of what was to come. Panic and fear, hope and determination, uncertainty and readiness, all existed together in the fragile balance before the storm. The countdown was almost over. Humanity was ready, though most of the world did not yet know it. The aliens above assumed surrender was coming, but the reality below would soon shatter that expectation forever. The 7th day dawned slowly with a strange calm over much of the world. Streets were quiet, the skies still dark with alien ships, and people everywhere held their breath. Governments broadcast messages urging calm, instructing citizens to remain indoors, and warning that surrender might still save lives. Some listened, others ignored, but nearly everyone could feel the tension thick in the air. Fear ruled, but beneath it something unusual was beginning to stir, something that no one outside of secret facilities could see, and that the aliens above had not anticipated. Beneath the frozen ice of Antarctica, the Shadow Armada waited. The hangar doors slid open slowly, revealing the dark, sleek ships in their full glory. They had been hidden from satellites, hidden from radars, hidden from human eyes for decades, and now they were ready. Pilots strapped in, their faces calm, eyes steady, every nerve alert. Engineers monitored energy readings and flight systems, making tiny adjustments to ensure maximum performance. Scientists ran last-second simulations predicting alien responses to every possible move. The atmosphere was electric with anticipation, but the people inside moved without panic. They had trained for this moment their entire lives. Outside, strange anomalies began to appear in the sky. Flashes of light, shadows moving too fast for ordinary aircraft, and energy pulses that vanished as quickly as they appeared. Some humans on the ground caught glimpses and felt a strange sense of hope, though none could understand what they were seeing. Satellites that had gone dark sent faint signals intermittently, suggesting that something below was beginning to act. It was the first sign that humanity's hidden power was about to make itself known. The aliens, confident in their superiority, had begun preparations for a final strike. Command ships moved into position. Energy fields glowed ominously and scanning systems intensified. They expected Earth to surrender any moment. Yet those subtle disturbances began to confuse them. Their sensors picked up objects moving impossibly fast, yet they could not lock onto them. Unknown energy signatures appeared in regions where humans had no known technology. Panic for the first time began to creep into their calculations. Inside the bases, pilots initiated final system checks. Ships roared to life silently, engines humming with a power that seemed almost alive. Control panels glowed in dim light, showing status updates, weapon readiness, and trajectory paths. Communication lines were tested, ensuring perfect synchronization between every base worldwide. Pilots ran through maneuvers again, simulating what would happen when the Shadow Armada finally entered the sky. The anticipation was palpable, yet everyone moved with precision, calm, and focus. Back on the surface, citizens began to notice even more unusual activity. Bright flashes illuminated clouds in remote regions. Lights moved too fast to be airplanes. Some reported hearing faint humming in the air, like energy waves traveling across the skies. News channels tried to report these events, but the images were blurry, difficult to verify, and often disappeared as quickly as they were captured. People speculated wildly. Aliens had activated weapons. Was Earth finally fighting back? Rumors spread, but no one had answers. Only the growing sense that something extraordinary was about to happen. In one hangar, a pilot paused for a moment to look at the dark hull of the ship before them. It was beautiful in a silent, threatening way, sleek, black, and almost predatory. This ship represented decades of preparation, ingenuity, and sacrifice. It was not just a machine. It was a symbol of humanity's patience, intelligence, and determination. Around the pilot, the other crews moved with similar focus. There was no fear here, only readiness and the quiet confidence of people who had spent years preparing for the impossible. Commanders in the base monitored alien broadcasts in real time. Every movement of the invaders was tracked. Their assumption that humans would surrender had proven to be their first mistake. The strange anomalies in their sensors indicated that humans were ready to strike in ways they had not anticipated. Strategists reviewed predicted responses and adapted deployment plans. Each ship in the Shadow Armada had a role, from reconnaissance to attack, from disruption to decoy maneuvers. Everything had been coordinated to maximize the element of surprise. Time moved strangely as the moment approached. On the surface, people waited, not knowing what they might see. Some remained in panic. Others, sensing something was about to happen, looked up with hope. In cities, the alien fleet seemed to hover, scanning, preparing, but unaware that below the ice, humanity's greatest weapon was about to rise. Then the first signs became undeniable. A ripple of energy appeared along the horizon, a subtle distortion that moved like a wave through the sky. Radar systems that had been unable to track the alien ships suddenly registered unusual blips. Above remote regions, shadows seemed to twist and vanish in an instant. Scientists in the hidden bases smiled quietly. This was exactly the sign they had anticipated. The Shadow Armada was about to make its first move. In Antarctica, the ships began to rise. Slowly at first, emerging from hangars and moving through the dense ice tunnels. Engines powered by energy far beyond what had been seen in human technology hummed with steady force. The air in the hangars vibrated with energy, almost imperceptibly but enough to be felt by those present. Pilots checked controls one last time. Systems aligned perfectly. The crews knew that any hesitation could be disastrous, but every preparation had been made to ensure precision. Outside, the alien fleet detected the rising energy. Their sensors strained, picking up anomalies, but their calculations could not match the reality. They had prepared for surrender, for panic, for fear, but not for strategy hidden in plain sight. Objects moved too fast, signals appeared where none should exist, and tiny disruptions in their communications began to accumulate. They had underestimated humanity. The first ships of the Shadow Armada broke through the ice into open air. They were dark, sleek, and almost ghostly in the dim sunlight. The energy they emitted shimmered against clouds, invisible to conventional optics but detectable by advanced sensors. Pilots guided them into position silently, moving in formation coordinated perfectly across vast distances. The base transmitted global instructions. ensuring that every hidden ship worldwide would act in unison when the time came. People on the surface began noticing. Bright streaks cut through the clouds, shadows danced across cities, and fleeting flashes of energy lit the skies. Citizens looked up in disbelief. Some gasped, others prayed. Most had no idea what they were seeing. The news channels scrambled to capture anything, but the events were fleeting, almost impossible to record fully. Yet for the first time in days, a sense of hope spread. Humanity was no longer passive. Humanity was preparing to fight. Within the base, every crew member was in position. Pilots, engineers, and scientists coordinated silently, speaking only in short, precise bursts when necessary. Systems were checked, weapons primed, and engines ready for the moment of full engagement. The Shadow Armada was ready to emerge into the open sky, to challenge the alien invaders, and to show the world that surrender would not be humanity's choice. Above, the alien fleet grew uneasy. Sensors picked up more anomalies, energy readings fluctuated unexpectedly, and communications were interrupted briefly. The invaders had expected Earth's response to be predictable, weak, and fearful. They had not accounted for hidden preparation, strategy, or coordination. Their assumption of superiority was slipping, and for the first time, doubt appeared in their ranks. Then, the Shadow Armada began to move in synchronized patterns. Ships accelerated, weaving in ways no conventional aircraft could achieve. Flashes of energy followed their paths, confusing sensors and making targeting nearly impossible. Signals from the surface picked up fleeting glimpses of the movement, though no one could fully understand the scale. Humanity was not surrendering. Humanity was acting, hidden until now, coordinated perfectly and ready to turn the tide. As the day progressed, citizens witnessed something they would never forget. Lights, shadows, and flashes moved across the sky in ways that defied explanation. Some saw them as signs of hope, others as warnings, but everyone felt the tension in the air. The aliens, meanwhile, were forced to pause. They had underestimated Earth, underestimated humanity's ingenuity, and underestimated patience. The Shadow Armada was no myth. It was real and it was moving. Back in the bases, pilots and commanders exchanged quiet nods. Systems were performing exactly as expected. Communications were clear, synchronized, and uninterrupted. Energy fields were stable, weapons ready. Every part of the plan was unfolding as it had been designed. For decades, humanity had prepared for this moment, and now, finally, it had arrived. The aliens above still believed that Earth might surrender. They still scanned, still threatened, still hoped for fear. But the first tangible signs of human resistance had appeared. The Shadow Armada was no longer hidden. It was visible, powerful, coordinated, and almost unstoppable. Humanity's patience had paid off. Fear had been replaced with precision, panic with strategy, and uncertainty with readiness. And so, the day unfolded with a quiet but undeniable truth. Humanity was no longer the hunted. The Shadow Armada had risen from the ice. The world above could not fully see it, and the invaders had begun to understand that Earth would not surrender. The sky above Earth was no longer silent. Strange flashes had been seen for hours. Shadows weaving impossibly fast between clouds, and the hum of unseen energy carried faintly to those listening. Citizens on the surface could feel it even if they could not understand it. Some stood frozen, staring upward, their eyes wide with fear and awe. Others clutched each other tightly, unsure whether to hope or panic. But no one could deny that something unprecedented was happening. Humanity was no longer waiting. It was acting. Beneath the ice, in hidden bases around the globe, the Shadow Armada crews braced themselves. Pilots were strapped in, controls mapped, every system primed for engagement. Engineers monitored energy levels, ensuring every engine, shield, and weapon was performing perfectly. Communications were maintained through secure networks, coordinating the movement of hundreds of ships in precise formation. Every moment of decades-long preparation was about to be tested in the skies above. The alien fleet, confident in their superiority, had positioned themselves to strike. Massive ships hovered over major cities, scanning the planet with energy beams and sensors. Their command ships moved like predators, confident that surrender was imminent. But their overconfidence was their first mistake. Their sensors, powerful and advanced, began picking up unusual signals, flashes of energy, fleeting blips of movement, objects appearing and disappearing in seconds. The aliens did not yet understand what was happening, but uncertainty began to creep into their calculations. Then it began. The first engagement was subtle but precise. A Shadow Armada ship emerged from the clouds like a phantom, moving faster than any conventional weapon could track. It struck a command drone in the alien fleet with surgical precision, disabling it instantly. The effect was not catastrophic, but it sent a clear message. Earth was not defenseless. The aliens reacted immediately, their beams targeting the new threat, but the human ship vanished before it could be hit. It was a glimpse of the strategy that had been rehearsed for decades. Speed, precision, and invisibility when needed. Other ships followed. The Shadow Armada moved in coordinated patterns, weaving through the clouds, striking vulnerable points in the alien formations. Flashes of light lit the sky as energy weapons discharged, and the air above major cities shimmered with interference that disabled alien sensors. From the ground, humans could see flashes and hear distant muffled sounds of energy discharge. Fear remained, but it was now mixed with awe. The invaders, once symbols of inevitable doom, were being challenged. Inside the alien fleet, confusion spread. Their scanners could not reliably track the human ships. Command drones fell one by one. Energy pulses destabilized their formations. The aliens had assumed fear and surrender, not strategic counterattacks. Every move the Shadow Armada made was calculated to exploit weaknesses the invaders had overlooked. Their advanced technology was formidable, but human ingenuity, preparation, and unpredictability had created a force they could not anticipate. On the surface, military personnel watched in disbelief. Radar systems suddenly detected signals moving too fast, too precise to be any known aircraft. Fighters scrambled to intercept, but many were unsure what they were seeing. Reports streamed in. Flashes over oceans, shadows disappearing over mountains, and mysterious energy pulses above major cities. Ordinary people began to sense that something remarkable was happening. Humanity was not running. Humanity was fighting back. The battle escalated quickly. Shadow Armada ships darted through the skies in complex formations, striking alien vessels where they were weakest. Some attacks were direct, destroying drones or small ships. Others were diversionary, drawing enemy fire away from strategic points. The aliens fired beams and projectiles, but the humans' unpredictability made them ineffective. Every maneuver had been practiced countless times in simulations, and now it worked perfectly in reality. Pilots felt the intensity of the moment. Adrenaline surged through their veins as they maneuvered at speeds beyond normal comprehension. They relied on instinct, training, and teamwork. Engineers and scientists in command rooms watched every movement, sending live updates to optimize formations. It was a perfect balance of human skill and technology, coordinated so precisely that even minor miscalculations could be corrected instantly. The aliens attempted countermeasures. Energy shields were reinforced. Command vessels shifted position and scanning frequencies were adjusted to detect hidden threats. But every adaptation by the invaders was anticipated by humans. The Shadow Armada was a global network of preparation, not isolated ships. Bases across continents communicated and coordinated, sending signals that created interference, confusion, and ultimately advantage. The aliens' confidence began to crumble. In cities, people watched the sky, seeing flashes of energy, strange shadows, and movement too fast to follow. Some recorded the events, hoping to prove that humanity was fighting back. Others stood in awe, understanding for the first time that Earth was not powerless. Panic still existed, but it was now tempered with hope. Humanity was not merely surviving. It was asserting itself. Back in the hidden bases, teams monitored every success and every loss. Systems were continuously checked, weapons adjusted, and energy levels monitored. Crews communicated with pilots, adjusting tactics in real time. The operation was fluid, adaptive, and highly coordinated. Every human involved knew that this was not a show of strength for pride. It was a fight for survival. The stakes were billions of lives, and the Shadow Armada was the only hope of turning the tide. The battle reached a turning point. Alien command ships, expecting an easy victory, were now under constant attack. Energy beams destabilized systems, communications were jammed, and several vessels fell silently from orbit. The aliens realized that the humans were not only prepared, but they were also strategic, coordinated, and relentless. The arrogance that had allowed them to assume Earth's surrender was now their greatest weakness. Pilots pushed themselves to the limit, executing maneuvers that tested their skill, courage, and endurance. They darted between enemy fire, synchronized with teams thousands of kilometers apart. Engineers tracked every energy discharge, every shield fluctuation, making split-second adjustments. Scientists calculated trajectories, firing solutions, and interference patterns faster than most humans could comprehend. Every aspect of the operation relied on human determination, ingenuity, and the discipline developed over decades of secret preparation. On the surface, ordinary citizens felt the intensity of the battle indirectly. Tremors of energy, strange lights, and fleeting sounds reminded them that humanity was fighting. Some prayed. Some held their families tightly. Some simply watched in awe. The news channels attempted to cover the events, but the scale and speed were almost impossible to capture. Yet the message was clear. Earth was not surrendering. Humanity was fighting back, and it was doing so with precision and courage. As hours passed, the aliens began to retreat in some areas. Their formations, once perfect and intimidating, were now fractured. Ships fell, energy fields destabilized, and confidence waned. The humans were still moving, coordinated and relentless. Every victory, no matter how small, reinforced the truth. Earth would not surrender. Fear had been replaced with strategy, panic with precision, and hopelessness with determination. Inside the hidden bases, crews allowed themselves brief moments of pride. Though there was no time for celebration, systems were checked continuously, energy levels monitored, and communications maintained. Pilots prepared for the next wave. Engineers recalibrated weapons, and scientists analyzed enemy behavior. Every step, every move, every calculation was part of a larger plan. Humanity had turned the tables, but the battle was far from over. The aliens, for the first time, began to acknowledge uncertainty. Their drones fell, energy systems failed, and command ships were disrupted. They had expected submission, not resistance, not strategy, and not ingenuity. The Shadow Armada had proven that Earth was neither weak nor helpless. They had underestimated humanity's capacity to adapt, coordinate, and strike decisively. By the end of the day, the first real clash had concluded, but its impact was clear. The aliens had been challenged, their confidence shaken, and their expectation of surrender shattered. Humanity, through preparation, discipline, and courage, had fought back in a way no one had thought possible. People above the ground witnessed flashes and anomalies, but most did not yet know the full extent. What mattered was the message they felt deep inside. Earth was not powerless. Humanity had risen, and the Shadow Armada had made its presence known. The first act of the battle had ended. Shadows danced in the clouds, ships returned briefly to hidden positions, and the world above held its breath once more. Fear had not vanished, but hope had begun to grow. Humanity had fought not out of arrogance, but out of survival, ingenuity, and determination. The aliens had underestimated them, and that mistake would echo across the universe. And so, the stage was set for what was to come. The Shadow Armada had emerged from secrecy, struck with precision, and revealed that humanity was not willing to surrender. The battle was far from over, but the first step had been taken. Earth had fought back. Humanity had shown courage, strategy, and resilience. The invaders would never see the world in the same way again. The skies above Earth were alive with motion, a spectacle no human had ever imagined. The Shadow Armada, hidden for decades beneath ice, mountains, and deserts, was now fully visible, and their presence had changed everything. The alien fleet, once confident in their superiority, now moved with caution. Sensors flared, shields activated, and formations shifted as their calculations struggled to keep pace with humanity's hidden power. The invaders had assumed fear, panic, and surrender, but all they received was resistance, strategy, and relentless courage. On the surface, people watched in awe. Flashes of light streaked across the sky. Shadows moved impossibly fast. Humankind had never seen anything like it. Ordinary citizens who had spent days in fear now felt hope. Families huddled together. Neighbors helped one another. And for the first time in a long while, there was a sense that survival was possible. Phones and cameras captured fragments of the battle, but no footage could truly do justice to what was happening. The energy above glowed, hummed, and pulsed, a mixture of human technology and ingenuity at its peak. In the hidden bases, pilots and engineers moved with calm intensity. Every ship was in position, every system checked, every weapon calibrated. Commands flowed through secure channels. The crews of the Shadow Armada knew that precision was everything. They struck with surgical efficiency, disabling alien drones, breaking their formations, and forcing them to retreat strategically. Every action had been calculated, every maneuver rehearsed. Yet there was also human instinct at work, an unpredictability that the invaders could not anticipate. Energy beams flashed, arcs of light cutting through clouds as alien vessels fell one by one. Some exploded, others were disabled, drifting silently into the void. Pilots dodged counterattacks, weaving in formations that seemed impossible, coordinated across continents. Engineers adjusted energy flows to stabilize shields. Scientists calculated firing sequences, and every crew member acted as one with the system. Humanity had learned to move not as individuals but as a single unified force. On the surface, small towns and cities watched the spectacle unfold. People cheered, cried, and whispered to each other in disbelief. For days they had lived in fear, thinking surrender was imminent. Now hope surged. Human ingenuity had turned the tide, and while no one could fully understand the scale of the Shadow Armada, everyone could feel its power. Humanity had not only fought, it had shown that it could rise, adapt, and defend itself against a threat that had seemed unbeatable. The alien command ships realized their mistake. They had underestimated humans' preparation, coordination, and resourcefulness. Their attempts to intimidate, to pressure, to force surrender had all failed. Energy beams that once dominated the skies now struggled to find their targets. Drones fell, systems failed, and formations became fractured. Confidence gave way to uncertainty, then to panic. They had assumed humans would bow, but they had been wrong. Every assumption was being dismantled in real time. In Antarctica and other hidden bases, the human crews felt a mix of adrenaline and relief. Every move in the sky was the result of decades of planning, training, and preparation. Engineers monitored energy flows with precision. Pilots executed maneuvers faster than thought possible. Scientists analyzed alien responses instantly, adjusting tactics on the fly. Each person played a vital role. Every success built momentum, and humanity's hidden force began to dominate the battlefield. Above, alien ships attempted to regroup. They concentrated fire on the largest human vessels, hoping to break the Armada's formation. But the humans were faster, smarter, and coordinated. Decoys, interference, and synchronized maneuvers made targeting almost impossible. Every attack by the aliens was countered or avoided. Humanity had turned the skies into a battlefield where the aliens no longer controlled the outcome. People on the ground felt the effects of the battle in subtle ways. Faint vibrations in the air, strange hums, flashes lighting up the horizon. News channels struggled to keep up, reporting incomplete fragments of what was happening. Some captured images of shadowy ships moving at impossible speeds. Others showed energy arcs that disintegrated alien drones instantly. Across the globe, humanity watched a miracle unfold. Fear had been replaced with pride, panic with awe, and hopelessness with the undeniable truth. Earth would not surrender. In the heat of the battle, pilots pushed themselves to the limit. They maneuvered at speeds beyond comprehension, dodging beams, striking critical systems, and coordinating attacks across thousands of kilometers. Every movement required skill, focus, and trust in their teammates. Engineers and scientists supported them constantly, recalculating energy flows, shield levels, and weapon targeting. The Shadow Armada was not just technology, it was humanity's intelligence, courage, and determination embodied in a fleet. The aliens made one final desperate push. Command ships fired concentrated energy pulses at major human positions. Drones swarmed to defend, but the humans anticipated every move. Shadow Armada ships countered with precision, disabling drones and command nodes. Energy arcs met in midair, creating brilliant flashes that lit up clouds and reflected across oceans. It was the culmination of decades of preparation and the peak of human ingenuity. Every strike, every maneuver, every calculation was perfect. Finally, the alien fleet began to retreat. Ships that once hovered confidently over cities now fled in disarray. Energy systems were destabilized. Command signals failed. The invaders had underestimated humanity's patience, skill, and coordination. Every assumption of weakness had been shattered. The Shadow Armada had proven itself, not just as a fleet, but as a symbol of human resilience. Earth had survived. Humanity had fought back, and it had won. On the surface, celebrations quietly erupted in pockets. People cheered as shadows in the sky vanished, as energy arcs disappeared, and as the alien threat pulled back. Families hugged, neighbors rejoiced, and communities realized that they were witnessing the turning point of history. Humanity had faced annihilation and had refused to surrender. Courage, preparation, and unity had triumphed over fear. Inside the hidden bases, crews allowed themselves brief moments of pride, though they remained vigilant. Systems were monitored, energy flows stabilized, and ships returned to hidden positions. Pilots removed helmets, engineers wiped sweat from their brows, and scientists reviewed data from the engagement. It had been a flawless execution. Humanity had struck when the time was right, using intelligence and patience to overcome a superior force. The alien fleet did not return. Their retreat was silent and complete. Earth had survived a threat that had seemed unbeatable. Governments, now aware of the full extent of humanity's hidden power, began coordinating public safety and communication efforts. Citizens gradually realized that the unseen had fought on their behalf. Fear began to dissipate, replaced with pride, hope, and a sense of unity. Humanity had learned valuable lessons. Patience, preparation, and strategy could overcome raw power. Ingenuity, teamwork, and courage could turn the tide against seemingly impossible odds. The Shadow Armada, hidden for decades, had emerged at the right moment, striking with precision and intelligence. What had seemed like fear and surrender above ground had been replaced with decisive action from below. The world had witnessed a silent revolution in defense and survival. As days passed, the skies cleared. Energy anomalies faded and satellites returned to normal. Citizens slowly ventured outside, seeing a planet that had survived a direct challenge. Discussions of fear gave way to awe. Histories would record this day as the moment humanity refused to bow. The Shadow Armada remained a secret to most, but its impact was undeniable. Humanity had demonstrated that surrender was not inevitable, that preparation and courage could overcome any challenge. In hidden bases, crews continued monitoring the skies, ensuring that the alien fleet did not return. Pilots trained, engineers maintained systems, and scientists studied the battle data. Humanity knew that vigilance was essential. But for the first time, there was also relief. Earth had survived. Humans had fought back. The impossible had been achieved. The story of the Shadow Armada spread quietly, first in whispers among military and scientific communities, and eventually through controlled releases to the public. People learned that Earth's hidden strength had been prepared long before the aliens arrived. They discovered that humanity's courage, intelligence, and unity had saved billions of lives. Fear had been overcome and hope had triumphed. And so the sixth part of this story ended not with destruction, but with a lesson. Earth would never surrender when humanity was willing to fight. The Shadow Armada had shown that patience, preparation, and intelligence could prevail even against the most powerful forces. The aliens had underestimated humans, and that mistake had ensured Earth's survival. Humanity had endured, had risen, and had proven that when united and determined, no force could easily conquer them. The world above slowly returned to normal, but it would never be the same. Citizens carried in their hearts the memory of the battle, the knowledge that humanity had risen from fear and hidden preparation to challenge the impossible. The Shadow Armada had become a symbol, not of war, but of resilience, strategy, and courage. Earth had survived because humans refused to surrender, and the universe had learned that humanity could not be under SEs.